What if the biggest financial mistake of modern middle-class life isn't being poor with money? What if it's trying to look rich before you actually are? Because today, a lot of people earning decent salaries, living in good cities, working respectable jobs, are financially exhausted. Not because they don't earn enough, but because modern life quietly trains people to perform success instead of build it. And over time, that performance becomes extremely expensive. Imagine a 29-year-old marketing executive living in London, or Chicago, or Amsterdam. Doesn't really matter. They earn around $75,000 a year before taxes. From the outside, they're doing well. Nice apartment. Leased German car. Weekend trips. Good clothes. Latest iPhone. Dinner with friends every Friday. Spotify. Netflix. Gym membership. Delivery apps. Everything looks normal. Actually, more than normal. Successful. But after taxes, that $75,000 salary becomes closer to $4,300 per month in spendable income. Then reality starts subtracting from identity. Rent, $1,900. Car payment, $620. Insurance, $180. Student loan, $350. Phone bill, $90. Subscriptions, $120. Groceries, $450. Restaurants and coffee, maybe another $400 without even noticing. And suddenly, someone earning far above average is left with almost nothing. Not broke enough to panic, but never financially relaxed either. And that's the strange part of modern middle-class life. Many people are surviving inside salaries that look powerful on paper. Because income alone no longer determines financial freedom. Lifestyle does. The uncomfortable truth is this. A lot of modern spending has very little to do with utility. It has more to do with emotional positioning. People don't just buy products anymore. They buy reassurance. The apartment says, I'm doing okay. The car says, I'm moving up. The expensive watch says, I belong here too. And social media quietly intensifies this pressure every single day. Because now people compare themselves not to neighbors, but to thousands of curated lives online. Someone your age buys a luxury SUV. Another friend posts vacation photos from Greece. A former classmate buys property at 31. And even if you logically know social media is selective, emotionally, your brain still registers it as reality. So spending becomes psychological, not practical. This is where financial self-sabotage begins. Not through one huge mistake, but through dozens of socially accepted small ones. A slightly more expensive apartment. A slightly nicer car. A slightly higher monthly payment. A slightly more premium lifestyle. Each decision feels manageable by itself. Because modern finance is built around monthly affordability, not total cost. That's important. Most people no longer ask, can I afford this? They ask, can I afford the payment? And those are completely different questions. Take a simple example. A new car costs $52,000. The dealership says, only $780 a month. Only. That word matters. Because psychologically, the brain stops processing the full number. It focuses on the smaller monthly pain instead. But if that payment lasts 6 years, that's over $56,000 after interest. Now imagine that same $780 invested monthly into a basic index fund averaging 8% annually. Over 20 years, that becomes roughly FE equals 780. 0.08/12. 1 plus 0.08/12. 240. Minus 1. Around $460,000. One financial decision. One lifestyle choice. Nearly $500,000 of future optionality traded for present appearance. Not because the person is irresponsible, but because modern consumer culture constantly rewards visible success, while real wealth stays mostly invisible. And this affects more than just savings. It affects freedom. Because the more expensive your lifestyle becomes, the less flexibility you have. You stay longer in jobs you dislike. You tolerate more stress. You delay career risks. You become emotionally dependent on maintaining income at all costs. A person with low expenses can survive uncertainty. A person with high fixed payments cannot. That changes behavior completely. This is why two people earning the exact same salary can live psychologically different lives. One feels trapped. The other feels calm. Not because of intelligence. Because of structure. And strangely, many financially intelligent people understand something most consumers don't. Looking wealthy and being wealthy are often opposite behaviors. Real wealth usually looks quieter than people expect. It's the engineer driving a reliable 5-year-old car while maxing out retirement accounts. The couple living below mortgage approval limits instead of at the edge of them. The friend who disappears from luxury group trips but quietly builds investments in the background. These people rarely look impressive in the short term. In fact, modern culture sometimes makes them look behind. But financially, they're buying something more valuable than appearance. Time. Flexibility. Reduced pressure. Future negotiating power. And that changes life over decades. Because eventually, the mathematics of lifestyle inflation catches up with almost everyone. A higher salary creates temporary relief. Then expenses rise to match it. Then the next raise feels necessary instead of helpful. And slowly, people become highly paid, but financially fragile. This is extremely common across the United States and Europe now. Especially among educated professionals. People with good incomes but very low margin for error. One layoff. One recession. One medical issue. One interest rate increase. And suddenly the image of stability disappears. The deeper issue is that many people were never taught what wealth is actually supposed to feel like. They think wealth feels luxurious. But in reality, wealth often feels quiet. It feels like not checking your bank account before groceries. It feels like having time to think clearly. It feels like saying no without fear. It feels like not needing to impress strangers. And ironically, that kind of financial calm is usually built through behaviors that look unremarkable from the outside. None of this means people should never enjoy money. Or never buy nice things. That's not the point. The problem begins when lifestyle becomes identity. Because then every financial decision becomes emotional. And emotional spending is very hard to control in a culture built entirely around comparison. Modern economies benefit when people constantly upgrade their lives. Advertising depends on insecurity. Consumer finance depends on monthly payments. Social media depends on visibility. Entire industries profit when people confuse appearance with progress. So resisting that pressure isn't really about discipline alone. It's about awareness. Simply noticing the system changes how you interact with it. And maybe that's the real shift. Financial intelligence isn't always about making more money. Sometimes it's just learning to separate self-worth from visible consumption. Because once that separation happens, people stop buying things to prove they're successful. And start building lives that actually feel stable underneath the surface. If you enjoyed this kind of calm, reality-based conversation about money and modern life, you can subscribe for more.